All right, everyone, welcome to the Expat Woman show. Today, you can see that I have a different virtual background. That's because we are hosting the Expat Woman Summit in 2 weeks' time, and I'm very excited to bring on one of our speakers, Dima Gata Ora. She's a speaker at the summit, and she's also one of the Friends of the Expat Woman sponsors. She's an executive coach for expats, and we're talking about something that I'm very passionate about, which is executive presence for expat leaders. Adima is joining us from Dubai, and I know it's 9 p.m. in the night, so I appreciate you making the time and staying up, to do this with us, Dima. But I'd love for you. You have such a eclectic, such an impressive professional background and expat journey. So I would love for you to share a little bit more about what you do, how you got to where you are today, and also where you've lived. I think you said several continents. I've forgotten. I was actually looking at your bio before, but there was so much. So go ahead, Dima, and let's hear more about you.
Sure. Well, thank you, Nina, and thank you very much for having me on this evening. It's lovely, for your morning and my evening. It's lovely to be here, and just to say thank you for all the work that you're doing to put
Wow.
the Expat Women Summit together. I know that you're very deep in a lot of logistical work at the moment, so and that's very much appreciated. So, yeah, I'm Dee Magata Ora. I live in Dubai at the moment and I've been an expat for the last 16, 17 years. I've moved to the Middle East in 2008, originally from England, although my family are from India. But I was born and brought up in the UK. And for the last 16 years, we've moved around um, and lived in the Middle East, lived in the US, in Texas. I've been a repat, an expat. I'm now back in the Middle East for the second time. So I feel that I've experienced all the different shades of being an expat and an immigrant at different points. My background, I've got a corporate background. I worked in retail banking in the UK. I then, as my journey began and we started to move overseas, I became very interested in personal development and trained as a coach. And the clients that I work with, who are expat leaders and global professionals, it was a natural fit, really, given my experience, my background, and the need for expat leaders and professionals to have some specific support to help them as they're dealing with corporate life overseas and just the challenges of being an expat and moving around the globe. So that's what I do. I work specifically with clients who work for large multinational companies, and globally, I have clients all over the world, all cultures, all countries, all backgrounds. And I find that coaching is something that's able to help you wherever you are and whatever point you're in your leadership journey.
That's awesome. I mean, and it's I think even though you work with expat leaders across the globe, I'm sure the challenges they face, because you said you work with corporate professionals, right, who work at multinationals. So I'm sure they face similar challenges and hurdles because they're multinational. So before we go into the executive presence, because I know that we have people in the audience who are either watching us live or might watch the replays, I
Mhm.
think the I think there are two things here that I'd love to learn more about. One is you've been able to take your business wherever you go, right? Which is fabulous. Because I think for some people who either have a brick or mortar business or maybe work specifically with clients in a country that they're living in, and then you move abroad, and then, because of different time zones. So one is, so my question would be, how do you find these clients? And then how do you manage all the different time zones in terms of coaching and stuff? Because it's not easy. Look at me and you. I'm in the West Coast, in the San Francisco Bay Area. You're in Dubai. It's 9 a.m. PST here. It's 9 p.m. Dubai time, and I know you have kids as well. So you're also balancing that. So just how do you find your clients, or how do they find you? And then how do you manage those time zones, especially with expat leaders, because I think they have very busy professional lives too, right? And I'm sure family life as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that I'm in a very lucky and privileged position. So just begin with, I started my business. I started Criterion Coaching when we were still living in the United States. And that was very much a need, because I realized very quickly that each time I was moving around, there was almost a need to reestablish myself wherever I was. And that can get very tiresome after a while, actually, when you're moving
Can
constantly.
imagine.
So I really wanted to be able to do something that gave me more ownership and more flexibility in what I did. I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would own my own company and be an entrepreneur. That was not something that I ever envisaged. I envisaged being a coach, and then realized very quickly that that meant owning your own business and being an entrepreneur for me. So I started in the US, and I trained with IPEC, and that gave me such a solid foundation. And because of the process that I had to go through in order to be certified, it's quite extensive, takes a lot of time. There was certain criteria that I had to pass in order to be able to be certified, and that led me to clients quite naturally, because you start off and you have to ask people, would you be willing almost for me to practice on you? I need to get certified. I need to get a number of hours under my belt. I was very lucky, because in that process, I found that people said to me, actually, this is quite good. Can we continue? And they became my first paying client like that. And then now I'd say the majority of my clients come either through corporates. I work with corporates who then kind of funnel me into specific people that they would like me to work with for them, or through word of mouth, through recommendation. A lot of my clients come through recommendation, and referral, and networking, good old-fashioned networking, and getting out there, letting people know what you do, how you can help them, how they're not alone in the struggles that they're facing, and that there's a solution, that there's something available to help them.
That's fabulous. Thank you. I mean, because I think people struggle with finding clients. And I think what you just shared is, one way you can connect with people. As you said, networking plays such a huge role. And I know, I believe we connected on LinkedIn. And
Yes.
yeah, and LinkedIn's another powerful tool. So let's go into the executive presence. Before that, I see Geraldine just has joined us, Geraldine Spies, and she says, hello, everyone. Very nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us. And anyone else who's joining us live, just jump into the comments and let us know where you're calling in from. If you have questions for Dima, if you have any comments to add to what she will be sharing with us, please go ahead and do so. So, Dima, let's talk about executive presence. And let's have you explain what it is for people who are not sure, and then we can go into the further questions.
Yeah, so I'm always struck by, whenever we talk about executive presence, it's quite a nebulous term. It's not easily defined. And I think that part of the reason for that is because it's something that we feel. We see it and we feel it, rather than a kind of tick box. Yes, this is it. You've got executive presence. For me, it's very much about being able to communicate who you are and what you're about and your vision in a clear, confident way that inspires others and helps them to get behind what you're trying to say and be. And clients will come to me sometimes, especially at the beginning, and say, I work with a client who said, I need you to help me with executive presence. I don't have any. She was very much looking at herself through the filter of not having executive presence. And when we dig into this, it means something slightly different to everybody. Some may feel that they're not being heard. You're not heard, you're not influencing, you're not getting opportunities in the way that you would want to. And I'm thinking very much in the corporate workplace now. And my approach to it is different. It's almost to turn it inside out, because I really believe that when we are trying to almost mold ourselves, first of all, when we're coming from a place of believing that we're lacking something, we become very fixated on that, and our confidence starts to drop. And we try and mirror or copy, or we're looking for clues around us. And almost as if there's a magic secret out there, that's executive presence. And once I've cracked it and I've got it. And I personally, I don't believe that. I think what I found and what my clients have found is that executive presence is very much about being authentic. It's about knowing who you are, the value that you bring, what makes you unique, and then having a perspective and the confidence and the self-trust to be able to communicate that succinctly, clearly, and without trying to create a particular effect. You're not focused on how it's being received. You are focused on what you are hoping to state, and you're using emotional intelligence and cultural awareness to aid you to create that level of confidence and trust. But it has to come within you first, and then other people feel it and see it in you rather than the other way around.
That's a fantastic definition of it, because I looked up executive presence on the web, and there's so many definitions, and I think you just kind of really shared what the essence is. So thank you for doing that. So let's talk about, in terms of with respect to the expat leaders, and I know you touched a little bit about it with cultural awareness and
Mm.
emotional intelligence. And I know that for people moving abroad, you might be the most confident leader, right? But when you move to a new country and you're navigating a foreign workplace where the culture is very different, maybe you don't look and sound like the people who work there, so you're already feeling like an outsider, that like you don't belong.
Mhm.
So what? And I guess these are some of the challenges. But since you work with the clients, I'd
Yeah.
love to know, what are some of the biggest challenges that expat leaders face when they're trying to cultivate their executive presence, or trying to transfer those executive presence skills from one country to the new country they've moved to, and the new workplace. It could be the same company, right? But maybe this branch in this new country might have a totally different perspective and workplace culture. So just would love your tips on, or your, not your tips, but rather your insights on it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you've really touched on it there, because we know how challenging it is to move your life overseas. Even if it's by choice, it's something that you've chosen to do, it's still incredibly challenging. And that sense of being at sea, of not having a firm grounding in where you are, not understanding the culture, not understanding how to show up, all these very natural fears that we experience also impact the way that we show up and impact our executive presence. But conversely, the very skills that we need to be successful expats are the exact skills that help us to cultivate a strong leadership presence and a strong executive presence. And it really is about being able to read a room, to lean in more into listening and what's being said and how it's being said, and not just what's being said, but what is meant underneath the words that you're hearing. These are all the skills and the traits that, as expat leaders, it's tough, it's challenging. And you're right, you could be in exactly the same company, sometimes in the same role, and be moved to a different location, and it's a completely different experience. And often that's because of your leader. At a certain point, your leader is setting the tone and the culture, who you work for. And that can change every time you change jobs. So I think that it's bringing it back into, it's almost like, for some people, I coach people who are in their first leadership role, all the way up to CEO. And the more senior you are, there's a certain level of executive presence that almost comes with the role. You may have, when you travel, there's an entourage, you have comms people, you have HR, you have people there to help you. And there's a certain level of executive presence just in the role. And it's who you are outside the role that will impact how successful you are as a leader and as an expat, and just how satisfied and fulfilled you feel as a person.
Yeah, no, that I mean, what you just said is definitely true, and I think, and I think maybe things like imposter syndrome also could play a role when you people always assume that women at the top or leaders, are so confident, and there's no, they don't have self-limiting beliefs, so there's no self-sabotage. But I think the minute you step out of your comfort zone, which happens when you move to a new country, because you're opening yourself up to new things and new environments and risk, it does affect your confidence. And then that little voice in your head saying, you don't belong here, you don't deserve to be, leader. Yeah, so I'm really glad you shared those challenges. And now that we spoke about the challenges, what are some tips, and especially implementable tips, so that anyone listening in the audience can uh, you know take action right away if they are experiencing challenges with showcasing their executive presence, and wanting to level it up. Maybe they have it.
Mhm.
Or I'm sure that you can constantly uh, what's it again, I use the word level up your executive presence, right? Because there must be different levels of executive presence too, right? You're always learning, you're always updating it, learning new skills. So I'd love to hear your insight.
We're evolving as people, aren't we? We're evolving. And as we encounter new challenges, each time you're climbing that mountain again. And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong. Nothing has gone wrong if you're feeling unsure. If there's a little voice that's saying to you, I'm not sure I belong here, that doesn't mean that anything's gone wrong, but it's very much about it's about how we approach that, the lens that we look at that through. So if I was going to, it's all very individual because it's about your individual mindset. It's where do you believe you don't have it, and why do you believe that, and what's getting in your way of showing up in your full capacity. But to make it practical, I think one of the very first things that we can do is not to try and mimic what we see around us. It can be very tempting, particularly when we're new expats or in a new situation or you're in a new leadership role, to look around you and see people and think, I need to be more like them because they've got it. Now, we're humans. There's a certain level of simulation, right? We live in groups. Nobody wants to be outcast. But to be very aware of to what extent you're shaving parts of yourself off in order to fit a mold. Because the more you do that, the less executive presence you'll have. It's vitally important that you cultivate your own viewpoints, your own vision, that you have something to contribute. So let's talk for example, one of the very specific challenges that my clients have is that they often have teams scattered around the world. Mm-hmm. Their manager may be in a completely different continent, right? Their boss is in a different continent. Their opportunities to influence and impact are quite limited. It's not the same as when you're all in the same office, right? And we're all in different time zones. In those situations, we need to be cognizant, we need to be aware that we are showing up with some thought about how we're coming across and what we want to communicate. What is it that I've got to say about this particular problem, this particular strategy? Because often the people that don't appear to have executive presence to their leaders are the ones that are not speaking up.
Mm.
It's vitally important that you have something to say and that you share it, because a lot of executive presence is about having influence and being able to bring a new perspective. And you can't bring that new perspective when you're constantly outwardly focused, looking over your shoulder, trying to fit in. It's almost a drawing your energy back into yourself, creating some self-trust, working on your mindset. And there are many professionals around the world that can help you do that. And then when you've done that, thinking, what is it that I bring that's different? Because that's the thing that has value. And that's the thing. And then executive presence is an outcome. It appears after, right? Rather than being the goal, it's an outcome that happens. I'm thinking particularly of a client of mine who is a woman of color who is going for a global role, and she in a European company, and she knew who the other people that she was up against were, and they were nothing like her. They were men, they were older than her, they were not minorities. And initially her viewpoint was, how can I compete with them? But you're not competing with them. Think very carefully about what you bring. And she was able to communicate very clearly because she believed in it. She was passionate about it. That I bring a new perspective, I bring a global perspective. And if that's the way the company wanted to go, then I'm your girl. I can do that. If you want to go in a different direction, then maybe those other people are what you're looking for. But either way is when you are clear on what you bring, and then you find ways. We can all work on communication skills, right? We can all improve. My approach would always be to say those are the icing on the cake that come at the end. Become clear on who you are, what you're about, what's your vision, and then learn how to communicate it more succinctly, how to improve your public speaking. But for me, those things come at the end. In executive presence, let's focus more on being present. Let's focus more on the presence aspect rather than what it means to be an executive.
Oh wow, Dima, those were lots of value bombs you dropped. Thank you so much for sharing that. But especially when you said it's the outcome, executive presence is the outcome. Because if you go in with that mindset that I want executive presence, it's not gonna happen, right? All the things you touched upon, especially I think for expat women and women of color, we tend to put not we tend again. I don't want to generalize, but there's this thing of putting again any expat woman, any woman or anyone putting people on a pedestal. Because I
Right.
teach workshops on imposter syndrome, and I've also worked individually with clients, and I tell them, do not compare yourself to anyone else. Do not put anyone on a pedestal, because we all have unique experiences and expertise. Especially, I believe, if you've lived and worked abroad and then moved to another country, as you said, you're bringing all those, your perspectives, your unique experience and skills and expertise that people who have not lived abroad will not have, right? And especially if you worked abroad and then moved to another country. So I think that was what you just shared was really important. And also, having that voice and the confidence to speak up and not being afraid to be shut down. Because I think a lot of women, we wait to be invited to have a seat at the table, right? And I'm always pushing women to build your own table. No
Yes.
matter where you are or in the corporate ladder, you need to build your own table. And if they don't let you build your table, then you go to move on and build a table somewhere else. But don't let your voice and your unique skills and perspectives and insights be shut down, because I think that's really important. And so thank you so much for bringing that up, because I'm always telling women to do that. So we do have only 4 minutes left, and we could go on to forever with this topic, because it's something dear to my heart, and there's something that you work with and have so much expertise in. but I do want you to share maybe one tip today, anything that you covered, like one takeaway that folks listening either live or watching the replay can implement. And I'm assuming this executive presence, you don't have to be at the top. You don't have to be like, you could even develop it if you're just starting off your career, if you are an entrepreneur, right? It's really about walking into the room, radiating confidence, owning who you are, no matter the color of your skin, no matter your accent, where
Yeah.
you're originally from. So just one implementable tip.
Gosh, that's yeah, you've put me on the spot there. I should have been prepared for that. I would give. I would, it depends on the person, but I would really say if you are somebody, if you're a woman and you're feeling very much that you don't have executive presence, that this is a thought that's running through your head and you feel that it's impacting your confidence, you absolutely have to nip that in the bud. And your first piece of work must be to work on yourself and your own mindset. Now, I know I'm a coach, and so that's a very predictable answer from a coach, but I truly believe it that we live from the inside out. So work on those things inside you. There are so many resources available. And I don't believe in faking it till you make it at all, because the problem with that is when you've made it, you still feel fake, right? You don't have the sense of fulfillment and ease that we want success to bring to you. But there are small tips that you can start practicing straight away. Find ways, and it's not just women. I've noticed lots of senior men do this as well. Work out a way for you to communicate that feels authentic and comfortable to you, that's succinct, that gets your point across, and practice it. Practice it, practice it to yourself, to people that you trust, and get feedback. Get feedback from people, because often in your own mind, you think you don't have something, and that's not what's being projected around you. So get feedback, work on your mindset. And if there's a particular thing, it's a skill like anything else, and you can learn it and practice it.
Powerful, very powerful. And you touched upon one more thing about being yourself and not imitating or copying other people. Because that I've noticed a lot of folks, they see someone else doing something, or the next shiny object, and then they just want to copy what they do instead of being authentic and doing what you are good at and what you're passionate about. So thank you for talking about that. You are going to be speaking at the summit. You're also friends of the Expat Woman sponsor. I want to thank you for your support. Just talk about what your topic is at the summit, and then also how people can find you if they're looking to work with you. How can they go about doing so? Go ahead, Dima.
Yes. Okay. Well, my topic is something that I'm extremely passionate about, that I'll be talking about at the Expat Women Summit that's coming at the beginning of March, and it's on energy leadership. Anybody who knows me knows that I can talk about this topic for days and days and days. So keeping it to 30 minutes is very challenging, Naila. But I'm going to talk about energy leadership and what that is, how it's going to help you to become very clear on all the things that we're talking about today and so much more. It's one of the most powerful tools I found to be able to get you from where you are now in any sphere of your life to where you want to be. And there are 7 levels, and I'm going to talk about the first 4 because those are often the ones that we experience. Much of corporate life is built upon them. We're going to talk about fear. We're going to talk about anger and frustration. We're going to talk about how to bring ourselves out of that and why it's important to do that. So that's what my topic is on. I'm an energy leadership coach. Every single one of my clients goes through this process and it works. So if you want to contact me, the best place is on LinkedIn. I'm here every day, Dima Gata Aura, Criterion Coaching. You can also find me at criterioncoaching.com. I'm on Instagram as Dima Gata Aura, and you can come and join us at the Expat Women Summit because we'll all be hanging out here together as well.
Wonderful. You know, the energy leadership just sounds so exciting. The first time I heard about it was when I found you online on LinkedIn. I was like, wow, this is so interesting. So I'm looking forward to hearing about it. And yeah, I know 25 minutes is short, but I think I'll have you back on the show again in the future. So you'll get another 25, 30 minutes to talk about it. And, you know, maybe then we'll have more questions after we watch your presentation. So I appreciate you being here today, Dima. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise, your time. And again, thank you for being a speaker at the summit and for being a sponsor. And I will share a link in the comments to the summit. Dima will also share links to her website. This is streaming actually on LinkedIn, in our Facebook groups, on the Facebook page, on the YouTube page, and the LinkedIn page. So, Lima, you have a lot of places to share your link. But you know, people join us from all over, and the Expat Women Summit is free. It's 3 days. It's running from March 6th to March 8th. We have 20 incredible speakers from across the globe focused on the theme of International Women's Day, which is Inspire Inclusion, Finding Belonging, Community, and Empowerment Abroad. Dima will be speaking on March 8th because that's the day we focus on finding empowerment abroad, and energy leadership is plays such a huge role in that. So it's the expatwoman.com/summit. So go ahead and sign up and we will see you there. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And thank you, Dima, again.
Thank
Bye.
you. Speak to you. Bye bye.